Ladies and gentlemen, the story you are about to see is true. The names have been changed to protect the innocent.
This is the city. Los Angeles, California. Over 2 million people work here. Over 6 million people play here. There are some places you aren't allowed to play. And there are some people who play too hard. When that happens, it's a job for me. I carry a badge. It was Tuesday, May 29th. It was cloudy in Los Angeles. We were working the day watch out of homicide division, missing persons detail. My partner's Frank Smith. The boss is Captain Hertel. My name's Friday. A woman had reported the disappearance of her 35-year-old brother who had been missing 2 days. The manner of his disappearance was sudden, extraordinary. We had to find him.
Hi there, old buddy.
Good morning.
How you feeling?
I'm fine. I take it you feel the same.
Never felt better. Sergeant's exam less than 2 weeks away, and I'm really hitting on all fours.
Is that right? Well, I'm glad to hear it.
Never felt better in my life. Sergeant's exam less than 2 weeks away, and I've got the situation well in hand. Inner conviction. That's what I've got.
You got what?
Inner conviction. I've studied hard, and I know my material. And I'm going to walk right into that exam and breeze right through it.
Well, you are confident, aren't you?
It's all right in here. 198 pages of it. One of the finest things that ever happened to me, Joe. Probably changed my whole life.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen that book.
You've never read it, though, have you?
No. But I remember Whitey Linder had a copy of it. He was reading it before the sergeant's exam last year. You remember Linder, don't you?
Oh, yeah. I haven't seen him around much lately. Where is old Whitey? You got any idea?
Uh-huh. Still pounding that beat out in Boyle Heights.
Oh.
Excuse me.
Yes, ma'am.
My name's Edith Tamber.
Oh, yes, Miss Tamber. My name's Friday. This is my partner, Frank Smith.
How you, man?
How do you do?
Won't you sit down?
You're the one I talked to on the phone, aren't you?
Yes, ma'am, that's right. Now, I take it that you haven't heard from your brother as yet.
No, not a word.
Uh-huh. Ralph Burdett Tamber, is that his full name?
Yes, that's right. I know there must be something wrong. Ralph's been gone since Sunday. No one's seen him. No one's heard from him. I'm worried sick about him.
The last time you saw him was on Sunday, is that right?
No, I didn't actually see him. I talked with him on the phone. We made a date for dinner. Ralph and I always have dinner together Sunday nights. It's about the only time in the week we get to see each other.
I see. I believe you told me on the phone you already checked with most of his friends and the places he'd be most likely to frequent.
I went to his apartment. I've called everyone I can think of. No one's seen him.
Who was the last person to see him, miss? Have you any idea?
Well, I talked to Ralph's landlady. She told me she saw Ralph and this friend of his, Andy Howard, going into Ralph's apartment. That was about 6 o'clock Sunday evening. Ralph was supposed to meet me at 7:30. He never showed up.
This friend of your brother's, Miss Tamber, this Andy Howard. You acquainted with him, are you?
Yes, but I don't know him too well. I only met him 2 or 3 times. He lives in the apartment house next door to Ralph's. The two of them were in the Navy together during the war. They're good friends.
Have you tried to get in touch with this Andy Howard?
Yes. I called Ralph's apartment when he didn't show up for our dinner date Sunday night. There wasn't any answer, so I looked up Andy's number in the phone book and called him.
I see.
I tried to talk to him, but it didn't do much good. It was strange.
Well, what do you mean?
He pretended he didn't even know me.
After we finished our interview with Edith Tamber, Frank and I started out to double-check with all the known friends and associates of her brother. We talked to his friends, his employer, and the people he worked with. None of them had seen him subsequent to 6 o'clock Sunday night. None of them could think of any good reason why he suddenly would want to pick up and leave his job and friends. Most of the people we talked to knew Andy Howard as a close friend of Tamber's. At Howard's place of employment, they told us he hadn't shown up for work since the previous Friday. We checked the apartment house where Andy Howard lived, and we found that Howard had moved without notice late Sunday night. Then we crossed over to the apartment house next door where Tamber lived, and we talked to the landlady, a Mrs. Higbee. She corroborated the story that we'd gotten from Ralph Tamber's sister that Andy Howard was last seen entering Tamber's apartment at about 6 o'clock Sunday night. Mrs. Higbee showed us up to Ralph Tamber's third-floor apartment. The 2 rooms, the living room, and the adjoining kitchenette were immaculate.
Neat as a pin, Joe. Not a thing out of order.
Seems to be. Miss Higbee, do you always provide maid service with the apartments?
No, we don't. We've been thinking about it, though. Haven't quite made up our minds. Such a task to get good, competent help these days.
Well, you mean the tenants are responsible for the entire upkeep?
Yes, everything but painting, wallpapering, things like that. Doesn't Mr. Tamber keep things spotless? Just spotless.
Miss Higbee,
Yes.
this wire here looks like an aerial connection for a television set.
Yes, Mr. Tamber does have a television set. Why?
Well, now, I don't notice it anywhere here in the apartment. Do you happen to know whether or not he sent it out for repairs, anything like that?
No, not that I know of. Besides, that doesn't seem like Mr. Tamber at all.
How do you mean that, ma'am?
Well, he's always so neat, fastidious. The end of that wire there. Isn't that terrible? Ripped right out of the woodwork. That doesn't seem like Mr. Tamber.
Anyone else have access to this apartment besides him?
No one I would know of. No one besides myself, I mean. I have duplicate keys to all the apartments. I just happened to think,
Yes, ma'am?
if the repairman did move the set out, my houseboy might know about it. Sam, that's my houseboy.
How would he know, ma'am?
It's a rule of the house. All furniture, heavy things like that, they have to be taken down in the freight elevator. It opens right on the alley behind the building. Very handy.
Yes, ma'am.
Sam's the only one that operates that elevator. That's why I say it's possible he might know about it. Would you like to have me ask him?
If you would, please.
Yes, it'll only take a minute. I'll be right back.
Thank you.
Hey, Joe, give me a hand with this wall bed. His closet must be in back of it.
All right. Frank. It's Tamber.
It's pretty vicious, huh?
Yeah, there's a hammer there, bloodstains all over it.
I sure feel sorry for your sister. It's gonna be tough on her.
No tougher than it was on him. 2:38 p.m. We phoned the office and told them what we'd found, and then we put in a call for Ray Pinker and the crime lab crew, and also for the coroner. While we were waiting, we questioned the landlady again, Mrs. Higbee. She said her houseboy, Sam, told her that he knew nothing about a television set being moved out of Ralph Tamber's apartment. Mrs. Higbee also told us that Tamber had a car, but that it was missing from the apartment garage. She gave us the make, the model, and the license number. After the deputy coroner's preliminary investigation was completed, Frank and I went back to the office, checked with DMV, and got out a local and an APB on Tamber's car, also on his friend Andy Howard. A check with R&I turned up a single entry for Howard's criminal record, a drunk driving charge. 5:20 p.m. We met with Edith Tamber and we broke the news of her brother's death. When she recovered from the shock, we interviewed her briefly.
It was Andy Howard. I know it was him. It had to be.
And why do you think he killed your brother, miss?
I don't know. I just know he did, that's all.
Did he ever fight with your brother? I mean, did he ever threaten him that you know of?
They had a big argument one night. About 2 weeks ago, I think. Andy kept sponging until Ralph got good and sick of it. He told Andy to go out and get a job. That's when the fight started.
Did you see it?
Ralph told me about it. They had a fist fight in the alley back of the apartment. Ralph knocked Andy down. Andy said he'd never forget it. He'd pay him back. A couple of days after that, my brother said the two of them made up. Everything was all right. Ralph should have known better.
Try to take it easy, ma'am. We'll arrange for a car to drive you home.
It's so hard to understand why anyone would want to kill Ralph. He was so good.
Yes, ma'am.
What do you say to a man who killed your brother? How do you understand him? What do you tell him?
Why even try?
What?
Let the jury tell him. Before we had the victim's sister, Edith Tamber, driven to her home, we asked her about the television set in her brother's apartment. She was unable to explain its absence. Burglary Division had already been notified about the case, and the pawn shop detail was alerted. 7:25 p.m. Frank and I drove out to interview a pawn shop operator on West 7th Street who had called in with the information that he'd taken in a television set with identical description and serial numbers as that of Tamber's. We checked the operator's buy book and we found that the TV set had been pawned the day after the murder. The serial numbers and description matched in every detail. The description and the signature of the man who pawned it matched perfectly with that of Ralph Tamber's friend, Andy Howard. The television set was booked as evidence, and just on a chance, we had Dean Bergman dusted for fingerprints.
Hi, Dean. Have you had any luck?
Not bad. Have a look.
Yeah?
Picked up 4 sets of prints, all told. Now, these here are the dead man's.
Mm-hmm.
These here belong to the pawn shop operator. And these belong to his son. He helps him in the shop.
Yeah.
Guess this is the one you're looking for. 2 clean index prints.
Mm-hmm. Did you classify them, Dean?
Checked them against prints from Andrew Howard's package.
And?
They match.
The better part of the next 4 days, Frank and I held detailed interviews with the known friends and associates of the murder victim and the #1 suspect, Andy Howard. The information we picked up was incorporated in a supplementary all-points bulletin, and it was gotten out immediately. We found out that Andy Howard had a sailor's uniform in his possession, and though unauthorized, he wore it frequently. It bore the insignia of a quartermaster, first class, on the sleeve. We had the city covered for the suspect. 4 days had passed. No trace of him. Monday, June 4th, 4:30 p.m. We got an urgent call from Homicide Commander Lieutenant Mort Gear in San Diego.
On the highway, huh? Uh-huh. When was that, Mort? Yeah, well, it sounds like it'll tie in. Uh-huh. How's that? Oh, sure, we'll let you know. You bet. Thanks, Mort. Yeah, bye.
What do you have to say?
Sounds like a good break. One of their traffic men down there, a fellow by the name of Jack Ladd, stopped a car on the highway going out of town speeding.
Yeah.
Well, this lad says the man answers Andy Howard's description. No doubt about the car the guy was driving. It was Tamber's. Description, license number match. He even used Tamber's identification.
Uh-huh. When did all this happen?
The day after the murder. They would have held the guy, but they didn't have the information at the time.
Yeah, that's a bum break. Anything else?
Yeah, they figure he's still around there someplace.
Well, why? What do you mean?
They found the car an hour ago, abandoned.
4:50 p.m. We briefed Captain Hertel about the information from San Diego, and then we picked up our car and we headed south on the freeway. 4 hours later, we arrived in San Diego, and we were met by Lieutenant Mort Gear at a designated spot just north of the city. Lieutenant Gear told us that a stakeout had been placed on Tamber's abandoned car, but so far it had netted them nothing.
Well, if we don't get any nibbles in the car by tomorrow, we'll pull it in and process it for prints. But actually, we got something warmer than the car. Looks pretty good.
Yeah, what's that, Mort?
Just came up with it a couple hours ago. Field interrogation card made out last night.
Uh-huh.
A beat officer named O'Driscoll questioned a man and a girl last night. They were parked in a car out in this end of town. Here's a description on the man.
Fits Howard all the way.
Couldn't get much closer. We checked the car they were in. It belongs to the girl.
Uh-huh. Well, where do we go from here, Mort? You got this Andy Howard spotted?
Well, Driscoll didn't know the guy from Adam.
Where's that leave us?
The girl Howard was with. Driscoll knew her.
The girl who'd been spotted sitting in a parked car the night before with murder suspect Andy Howard had been identified as a Helen McClung, a waitress in a downtown hotel coffee shop. She lived in an apartment less than a mile from where we'd met Mort Gear. We drove to the McClung girl's apartment and we started to question her. She readily admitted that she'd had a date with the suspect the night before.
No, he's not a good friend of mine. I don't know where he lives. I don't know what he does. I hardly even know him, Sergeant.
You're sure you don't know where this man lives?
No, not exactly. Staying at a hotel downtown, I think. We went for a ride. I dropped him off at the bus line. That's all there was to it.
You expect to see him again, miss?
Well, to tell you the truth, I thought I'd have another date with him, but it didn't work out.
Oh, why was that?
Well, he phoned this morning, gave some lame excuse. I found out the real reason, though.
Well, what's that? You mind telling us?
No, I don't mind. He has a date with my girlfriend instead, Claire Peterson. Burned me up a little.
Where's this Peterson girl live?
You mean Claire? Out on Rose Avenue, 1500 block.
Is he going to pick her up there?
I guess so. Why?
When's the date for?
Wednesday night.
After we left Helen McClung's apartment, Frank, Mort Gear, and I drove across town to question her girlfriend, Claire Peterson, who was supposed to have a date with the murder suspect, Andy Howard. She told us that she'd only met him once and that she knew very little about him.
Yes, that's true. I have a date with him Wednesday night.
Did he use the name Ralph Tamber?
Yes, that's right. Something the matter?
Afraid so, Miss Peterson, and that's not his right name.
Oh, I'm sorry. You must be wrong, officer. I know that's his name. It's on everything he has. His car, his wallet, all his business papers. I guess you must have made a mistake.
It's no mistake, ma'am. We checked it out pretty thoroughly. I'd like to talk to you about him.
Well, there isn't much to tell. I met him when he was with my girlfriend, Helen. He wanted to go out with me, so I made a date. I didn't think there was anything wrong in that.
Now, you said he's to meet you here, Miss Peterson. What time are you expecting him?
8 or 8:30, he said. Look, if there's something wrong with the man, I should know, don't you think?
We just want to talk to him. You got any idea where he lives?
No, I guess I don't. One of the hotels downtown, I think. 5th or 6th Street. I wouldn't know for sure. Please, why do you want him? Can't you tell me?
We believe he's committed a murder, Miss Peterson. Matter of fact, we're sure of it.
What do you want me to do?
If he calls up before your date, don't do anything to discourage him. If he wants to postpone the date, try to make him keep it anyway. Now, if you can't do that, try and find out where he's staying. And don't let him know that we talked to you.
Well, all right. I can try. You'll be here when he comes.
We'll be here. You'll be protected all the way.
But what will you do? You say he's a murderer. He's desperate.
That's right.
What are you going to do? He may have a gun. How are you going to arrest him?
Well, it's his choice, ma'am. Any way he wants it. Before we left the Peterson girl, Mort Gear called San Diego Homicide Detail and made arrangements for an immediate stakeout at the girl's apartment. Wednesday, June 6th. At 7 p.m., Frank and I drove out to supplement the men already on stakeout at the Peterson girl's apartment. 10 p.m. Still no sign of the suspect.
8 a.m. Saturday. Huh? The sergeant's exam, the written part.
Oh. Well, you're not worried, I know that.
I'm not. Why not?
Inner conviction.
Hi, Mort. What do you got?
Just got a report from the Highway Patrol at San Clemente.
What's the word?
They grabbed a guy for speeding a couple hours ago, driving a stolen car. They figure he's your man, Andy Howard.
San Clemente?
Right, and he was driving north on 101 toward L.A.
What about identification, Mort? They checked that?
Now, I didn't have any identification, but he was wearing a sailor's uniform.
Well, how about the insignia? What was his rating?
Quartermaster, first class.
The men from San Diego Homicide remained on stakeout. Frank and I drove to the Highway Patrol station at San Clemente, picked up the suspect, and drove him back to Los Angeles. 3:15 a.m. We took the suspect directly to the squad room and we started to question him. After a full hour of interrogation, he would still admit nothing.
Why don't you come off it, Andy? This isn't going to work for you. How about the truth?
I don't appreciate this pushing around, officers. Now, you've got my story. I gave it to you 5 minutes after I walked in this room, and it's the truth. If you're going to hold a trial, you better go out and round up a jury
A
first.
straight story, Andy. That's all we want. You're stalling and you know it.
This will make the 10th time I've told you I don't know what happened to Ralph. I didn't take his car, and I didn't take his television set. If you don't believe me, you just prove I'm lying.
We didn't pull you in on a guess, Andy. We'll prove it.
You mind telling me how?
We've got 3 people on their way in here right now. Ralph Tamber's sister, his landlady, a man by the name of Sims, a pawn shop dealer. Now, does that mean anything to you?
My word against theirs.
3-1, mister. They got the odds in their favor, haven't they?
Why don't we straighten this out once and for all? You think I killed my friend Ralph. Why? Explain it to me. Why should I kill him?
I wouldn't know, Andy. Why are you still wearing that uniform? You're not authorized to. Why'd the Navy give you a dishonorable discharge? Maybe you'd like to tell us about those things. You know, Ralph's sister says he was pretty good to you.
He was good to me. Guess she didn't tell you what I did for him overseas when we were in the Navy together?
No, she didn't tell us.
No, she wouldn't. Stupid women. I haven't found one of them worth anything. Frustrated. She needs a husband. That's her trouble.
What's that got to do with her brother?
Everything. All she ever did was cause trouble between Ralph and me. She lied about me, spread all kind of stories. She kept trying to break up our friendship.
That's what started the argument, is that it?
I tried to reason with Ralph. He wouldn't listen. He always took her part. Stupid women. They're all the same.
She claims her brother was paying the bills for you, Andy. He gave you clothes, money, his car. She says you were living off of him.
Lousy woman. That's all the thanks I got after all I did for Ralph. I borrowed a few dollars, yes, but that's all. He kept throwing it up to me, him and his sister, after all I did for him.
What are you trying to say, Andy?
Could have been different. Ralph and me. What do you want me to say?
Did you kill him? Did you kill him, Andy?
Oh, now, you really can't explain it like that. Things aren't always black or white. It's not that simple.
It isn't?
No, of course not. It's all mixed up together, intermingled. It's really very difficult to comprehend the whole situation.
Well, now, why don't you go ahead? We'll listen.
You see, basically, it comes down to a question of moral and ethical principles. Actually, he was dead before I knew it.
You killed him.
Well, now, that's not exactly right. It was a moment of being not quite rational. You understand? It was more of an honest mistake. I mean, morally, I didn't really intend to kill him. I just did. I became violent. There was a complete absence of reason, and I killed him. I murdered him. A mistake, a terrible mistake. I don't understand it myself.
You want to give us a statement, Andy? Stenographer will take it down.
In a minute. I just want to make sure you understand. About Ralph, I mean. After everything I did for him.
Yeah?
He had no gratitude. No gratitude at all. Do you blame me after all I did for him? Do you blame me?
You should have remembered, Andy. Gratitude.
Yeah?
It's no good when you have to ask for it.
On December 6th, trial was held in Department 98, Superior Court of the State of California, in and for the County of Los Angeles. In a moment, the results of that trial. The suspect was tried and convicted of manslaughter. Manslaughter is punishable by imprisonment in the state penitentiary for a period of not more than 10 years.